President Joe Biden said on Tuesday, the United States has enough COVID funding to get through at least this year, but it needs more money to plan for the next pandemic. We need more money to plan for the next pandemic. There's going to be another pandemic. We have to think ahead. Biden said in remarks at the White House to mark availability of vaccines for young children, which he said we are the first country in the world to have vaccines for kids under the age of 6 months, which he celebrated. And the commentary, if you read it, it's actually 95% of people who commented on it was negative. But are you reading into this comment, or is it just, no, we do need to prepare for the next pandemic?
First of all, how does he know we're going to have another pandemic? Number one. Number two, I'm not one who believes that the COVID-19 vaccination is necessarily safe nor effective. But I also believe that if you decide you want to take it, that's fine. That's up to you. Nobody should be required to take it. I believe in health freedom. But you also wonder whether there is a political motivation. In other words, if you wanted to say, for example, that going to the polls was too dangerous because of a pandemic and that all voting should be done by mail-in ballot, well, I think that's an open invitation for voter fraud.
Good point.
Any thoughts on your end or no?
No, the one that I do have a comment on, because both of you have used the term a couple of times of giving money to Ukraine. I take a slightly different ulterior motive for this, and that comes because of my background. Russia, second only to China, is a problem that we have had since 1917, and we will continue to have as long as they're in power. And if you look at history, Afghanistan war, we helping the Afghanis. And I know that with 2020 hindsight, we go, gee, we should have taken the missiles back before we left. But the Ukraine can be the downfall of what the Soviet Union is trying to become. Because when the Russian body bags start going back home, and let me tell you something, the U.S. has been helping the Ukrainians since 2015. They did not learn how to fight and how to run intelligence networks in the last 3 months, because there has been a big shift from fighting wars to taking steps to prevent wars. And the only way you can do that is working with individuals in countries that are allies, fortifying them, and if there's an issue, let them fight that fight and you support it. But I am all for keeping Ukraine as that thorn in the side of the Russians, besides the humanitarian part and the atrocities are being committed.
This is where we're going to have to disagree. We signed a treaty in 1994 promising not to have Ukraine join NATO, which is defined as putting missiles aimed at Russia in NATO. We're now seeking to do that. This is not different than 1962 when the Russians put missiles in Cuba and President Kennedy objected, and that was resolved, thank God, diplomatically. We do have bioweapons labs in Ukraine. The silos are actually built. We haven't just dropped the missiles in. I think this could have been resolved diplomatically had the Ukrainians not agreed to join NATO, which is defined as putting Western missiles in their country. The idea that Putin, who's not a good guy, I want to be very clear. I mean, my family were mowed down by Russian tanks in Budapest. I have no truck for the Russians. He's a thug. But at the same time, the idea that he just wants to occupy Ukraine, he can't even afford that. His economy is a basket case. So this is going to be a costly war for him, but I think it could have been resolved short of the carnage we see today.
I don't disagree with that, but the thing that ship has sailed. We are at war. And if you're going to get any silver lining out of this is let's really button that up. If the argument that Putin uses about Ukraine being a threat to them, well, why aren't we doing something against Cuba? Cuba is the cancer of Latin America. Nicaragua, Venezuela, Colombia now. All these are funded and influenced and led. There are more intel officers from the Cuban service in those kind of countries propping them up.
Didn't Colombia just get the first socialist democratic president, which means they're the next Venezuela?
He was actually a former senior terrorist.
He's part of the guerrilla camp.
Yeah, he was one of the commanders of guerrilla camps.
But you have to wonder why the U.S. Senate, on the one hand, votes to give $40 million in aid, mostly military, lethal aid, supposedly, to Ukraine, but then they vote down a motion to have an inspector general track where that money's going. Yeah. Why wouldn't you want to know where that money's going? It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, somebody just commented, Inception Child said, what will it take to put Putin on a terrorist list like Biden, like bin Laden was? Or is he a terrorist only if he attacks America? So do you see Putin as somebody that should be on that list, or no, he shouldn't be on that list?
Well, he should for the different reasons, but you got to understand that why are we surprised at what Putin is doing, the kind of person he is? He's not the anomaly in Russian and Soviet government. If you go back to Stalin and Khrushchev and everybody in between, the majority of those the leaders of Soviet Union and now Russia are of that criminal bent. They have that mentality. The oligarchs that you got 100 billionaires in Russia that are bleeding money. All these things bad for Russia. But he should that would be another nail in his coffin, declaring him that, because he is responsible for the acts that the military is committing in Ukraine.
Would he be held accountable for war crimes? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Let me ask you to follow up on that, Rick. You basically have said that Russians and communists are expansionists, right? And then you followed up and you said, regarding Putin's goals, and I want to ask you about Putin's goals. You said that a terminology I used was creeping normalcy, which is basically, take a piece, you wait for a little bit, and then, kind of wait for things to simmer down again, and then boom, you attack again. So what do you think Putin's goals are?
He said it when he first took power. I will reconstitute the Soviet Union to its previous glory. That's a clue right there. How do you create the Soviet Union again? You take over Romania. You take over Georgia. You take over the Ukraine. They are inspectionistic. I don't think the Russians are creeping normalcy types. They're too blunt. They're too blunt of an edge. Koreans and Asian, Chinese are extremely good at that. Mm-hmm. That creeping normalcy. And whereas we have barely 3-year plans because of the 4th year the president has to start focusing on the re-election, the Chinese or the Russians don't have that problem. They can have a 50-year plan, a 100-year plan, and you tweak it according to what it is, but the end goal is still the same. Our end goal as America should be to remain a republic. Their goal is to world domination.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.